Welcome to the Rimm-PODCAST, episode 44. This is our special guest. Before I introduce him, I'd like to read something really important. That was on initiative ballots that actually restored 1.4 million voting rights. So it said, number 4, Constitutional Amendment, Article 4, Section 4, Voting Restoration Amendment. The amendment restores the voting rights of the Floridians with felony conviction after they complete all the terms of their sentence, including parole, probation. The amendment would not sentence including parole and probation. The amendment would not apply to those who are convicted of the murder or sexual offenses who would continue to be permanently barred from the voting unless the governor or cabinet vote to restore their voting rights on case by case. I know how hard it is to put 75 words out of the million words out there. Our special guest is only one and the only Desmond Meade. Sir, welcome to the show.
Igor, thank you so much for having me.
Second thing I want to really promote is his book. It's the great book. It's called Let My People Vote. And I read this book prior to Desmond coming to our show. I highly, highly urge you to read this book. It will change your life. I can just tell you one thing. What did you went through and what did you become? I'm fascinated. I want to take the podcast this the level the way you took the amendment for restoration rights. So I know you are also the president of the Florida Restoration, right? Mm-hmm. The voting rights. And you took their company from something to one of the biggest. and you also been, man, I love, it's here. You've been named one of the most 100 influential people in the United States and the world by the Time magazine. Sir, welcome to the show.
Listen, it's a pleasure to be here, Igor. And I like that you actually started out with those 75 words because, folks would probably say, oh, that's only 75 words. But they don't really understand what it took to get to those 75 words and have that in a legal document and now a part of the Florida Constitution. But it took many years, many years of blood, sweat, and tears just to whittle a bunch of words down to 75 words that have a significant impact, not only in the state of Florida or even in the United States, but have an impact in the world.
Yes, but you put entire your life in 75 words. Can you imagine if somebody asked me to put my entire life in 75 words and let other people who govern to approve it, which is even a harder point. I want to move straight forward to the questions. I want to cover up the basic voting rights. I know you are a civil voting activist, one of the best, as far as I know. And probably in a century that something like this, putting initiative ballots, and I just learned a lot from your book. So my first question, do we need a stronger voting rights here in the state of Florida or any other state?
Yeah, I think we do. Okay. I think it's extremely essential. I believe that, at the end of the day, if you have a group of people in a community, right, the people that live in that community should have a say on how that community is being governed, right? You don't want to have a community of 100 people and only 25 people get to make decisions as to the rest of everyone else. And so, I think there have to be stronger voting laws. I think that we have to engage in policies and laws that would increase the number of people in the community that is participating in our democracy. I believe that the more people get to participate in our democracy, the more vibrant that democracy becomes.
Yes.
And let me tell you a key piece, Igor. I don't advocate for people who think like me or look like me to participate in democracy. They're not the only people who I advocate. I advocate even for people who may not look like me or who may even disagree with me. But it's very important that the people that disagree with me also have their voices heard. And it's in the collective that something beautiful can emerge.
And I know during the book you went restore disfranchisement. Can you a little bit touch on that, how is important that for our state and the country?
Yes, you know, when it's particularly like in Florida,
Okay.
prior to the amendment being passed, you know, Florida was the worst state in the country in disenfranchising its citizens, which meant that if an individual was convicted of a felony offense, all right, and that's an offense that where you can be sentenced to more than a year in prison. If a person is convicted of that, they lose their civil rights for the rest of their lives,
Wow.
which means the right to vote, the right to serve on a jury, the right to run for office, the right to own a firearm, right? And then there are other collateral consequences that's associated with that right. Because, for instance, you know, I went to law school. I graduated law school, but I could not practice law because my civil rights were not restored.
Okay.
Right? If I go to purchase a home, there are some communities that would not allow me to purchase or even rent a home because my civil rights have not been restored. And so Florida was the worst state. Out of all the people in the country, Florida accounted for 25% of people who could not vote in this entire country because of a felony conviction.
Wow. Wow. I got a really strong question now. I'm going to act as I and we.
Okay.
So the question goes, how can I or we make a complaint regarding possible violation of the federal voting rights? And where will be filed those complaints? If so, how? A lot of people don't know where to go.
You know, that's a great question. And it's there are multiple avenues there.
Okay.
You know, I think at first, your first level, if there is an issue around your ability to vote, I think it should, first person that you should take it to is your local supervisor of election.
Okay.
Right? If your local supervisor of election office cannot resolve that, then you can take it to the Secretary of State.
Okay.
If the Secretary of State cannot resolve that issue, then I think you take it to the courts.
Yes.
Right?
So that's the process.
That's
the majority of the people don't know the process. We don't know where to go. Look at you. You fought a lot. Where you coming from? It just inspired me, man. I have a goosebumps just reading your book. And I said I highly going to encourage and promote your book because it really changed me. It touched me. Touched me. Even I never met you before. Now is the first time. It just touched me. The second question, if I or we lost my or our right or rights to vote because I or we was or were convicted of the crime, how can I or we get it restored? I want to go back again. It's important.
Yes. Well, you know, that was the purpose of Amendment 4.
Okay.
Right, because prior to Amendment 4, you lost the right to vote for the rest of your life.
Okay.
Right? And technically, you would never be able to get it back.
Okay.
There was a little loophole that allowed the governor and his cabinet, which makes up the clemency board, to restore voting rights to you. But that was so political. You know, we've seen, for instance, in 4 years when our previous governor, Charlie Crist, was the governor of Florida, over 155,000 people were able to have their civil rights restored in 4 years. Then you fast forward to our previous governor, Rick Scott, when he came into office. In 8 years, less than 5,000 people were able to have their civil rights restored. And so the problem is that even though there's that loophole there, politicians are in charge of deciding whether or not you're able to get your rights back, and that leaves room for partisan politics to play a role. I believe, strongly believe, that there is no greater indicator of citizenship than being able to vote.
Yes.
And being able to have a voice. And it is so important, it's so vital that we can't leave it up to politicians to decide who gets a say and who don't get a say. Amendment 4 created a pathway to where now, if you committed an offense and you lost your right to vote, what those 75 words said is that when you pay your debt to society, when you serve your time, you complete your sentence. Once that is done, the right to vote to you is restored.
Nice, nice, nice. So the second question is, can former felons get the voting rights restored here, not just here, but anywhere else?
That's a great question. And one of the things that I like to tell folks is that part of, even when we talk about, so many different issues, you've talked about many issues on your show.
Yes.
One of the things that I always go back to is that it is vitally important that we connect with each other along the lines of humanity, right? And what helps us do that is our language,
yes.
right? I'll give you a great example. When you talk about immigrants in this country, right? One of the things that would cause a disconnect is by adding one word next to immigrant. Yeah. You add illegal there, that person is no longer as human, you're no longer as connected to their humanity, and they become something else, right? This country is notorious for doing that to people who made mistakes.
Correct.
We're criminals or felons, right? And those terminologies help create a separation between us, right? Because the reality is, if our brother or our sister, right, were to commit a crime and become convicted, we're not going to say, hey, that's my felon. No, that is my brother. That is my mother.
Help him out.
We see the humanity in them first. And one of the things that we do to help is by referring to folks as returning citizens. Now, let me tell you, to answer your question, every state have different laws, right? And the overwhelming majority of states in the United States allow a person to vote once they've completed their sentence. In Maine and Vermont, you never lose the right to vote. Oh, wow. I like Maine and Vermont. People get to vote while they're in prison. Let me tell you why I like Maine and Vermont. Just like I said, there's no greater indicator of citizenship than being able to vote.
Yes.
I kind of equate that, right? That, man, nothing speaks more to me being an American than the right to vote.
Yes.
When you strip me of that right to vote, right, you relegate me to a second-class citizenship status. I'm no longer this American, right? I think about, I have 4 boys.
Yes.
And, if you have boys, sometimes they're going to do some stupid things.
Yeah, especially
they're going to make mistakes. They're going to do some things that make you want to, as you see, I don't have any more hair on my head. I pulled it all out, right? But here's the thing. No matter what my son does, they never stop being my son.
Yes.
They never stop being my son.
Yes.
They may piss me off. They may make a mistake. They may even get punished. But they never stop being my son. And so I really do believe that no one should ever lose the right to vote. Yes, they make, we all make mistakes.
Of course.
The only difference between me and you is that I got caught. You didn't. But everybody's made mistakes. In Florida, I'll give you a great example. Do you know that you can lose your civil rights to include the right to vote for releasing a helium-filled balloon in the air? Wow. You could lose your right to vote for the rest of your life for driving with a suspended license, for catching a lobster whose tail is too short. If you're walking down the beach and you disturb turtle nesting eggs, that is a felony that would cause you to lose your civil rights for the rest of your life. If you write a check and it bounces and it's over a certain amount of money, you lose the right to vote for the rest of your life.
So many restrictions.
That's a lot.
Yeah. And it is prohibited to draw majority or minority in districts, especially here in the state of Florida? Because I know you touched that a lot, because everything comes down to minority over majorities.
When you talk about the drawing of redistricting or drawing congressional maps, I lump that in with felony enfranchisement and so many other issues. Okay. And when I see these things, what I think about the most is from the very formation of this country. Okay. I now have a new book about Benjamin Franklin, and I go back to the days of Benjamin Franklin.
Yes.
When this country was brought together and formed, there have always been a group of people who wanted to pick and choose who got to vote for them. Mm-hmm. Understand this?
Yep.
Right? And you get it from every side. There's always been a group of politicians that felt that they need to determine who is worthy of being able to vote for them. Not too long ago, women were not even allowed to vote.
Yes.
They thought, no, women, there's no way that a woman should be able to vote.
Okay.
They shouldn't have a say. And they were so adamant about it that they actually brutalized women in the streets
Oh, yeah.
and threw them in prison, all because women said that I'm a human being
Yes.
and I should have a voice or a say in how my community is being governed. And so there are always going to be people that's going to say, okay, I only want people in certain communities or certain type of people to vote for me. And they're going to draw all kinds of crazy lines, right, to include the people who they want to vote for them and exclude the people who they don't want to participate in the process. They're going to make things harder, access to the ballot box harder for people to go to exclude people, and so you find it, really it's pervasive in this country, and not one political party have a monopoly on those tactics.
Wow.
They don't. And so I think that what we need are less politicians who want to be selective on who vote for them and more public servants who believe that everybody should have a say in deciding who could be their servant.
Nice. So, my last question, like I said, tell not just Floridians, but anybody, because we don't have just issue here in the United States. We got an issue everywhere, worldwide. And because you are one of the 100 most influential people in the United States and the world in 2019, I believe moving forward, as many history books will be written about you. Can you look it up in the camera and say, not just for the restoring citizens, but how to stay out of the trouble?
Let me tell you, I'm going to switch my answer a little bit, because at the end of the day, I think this is so important. When we won Amendment 4, over 5.1 million people voted yes on Amendment 4. Over 1 million more people voted for our amendment than for the governor of this state, right? And we had over 1 million people who were conservatives that voted for our amendment, which showed a broad cross-section of support. One of the things that I'm most proud of is I tell folks that those 5.1 million votes were not votes that was based on hate or fear, but rather they were votes that was based on love, forgiveness, and redemption. And we showed the world, we showed this state of Florida, that love can in fact win the day, that we do not have to tear each other down. We do not have to live in fear of each other. We do not have to be so as divisive as we are, that we can, as human beings, right, in spite of our political differences, in spite of our ethnic differences, in spite of our socioeconomic status, that we can come together as human beings, right, and around the power of love and accomplish great things. The reason why I am Time Magazine 100 most influential in the world, the reason why I have been able to be successful in life is because I've understood that love is the driving force, or it should be the driving force, in everything that we do. A chain is only as strong as its weakest link, and that is the same for our society. If we want our communities, if we want our state, our country, if we want this world to be a better place, then we must strengthen those in our communities who have been most weakened by systems of oppression or discrimination. And we must advocate and fight for these individuals with love. What the world needs now is love. Sweet, pure love.
And I also want to, there's the great book, guys, please, I will post it, I'll take the picture. It's a great book. It's not just 75 words, but those 75 words meant a lot to a lot of Floridians and people who need a second chance. That's Either right. You are felony or sick, it doesn't matter, anybody in the situation that needs the help.
Everybody benefits.
Yes, everybody.
When we empower those who are most weakened among us, yes, we all get stronger. Yes. We all get better. And encouragement.
That's positive right. Attitude, yeah. Mental, everything, move forward. And the only way we can fix society, working together.
That's right.
And I always say, highly encourage this book. And thank you so much for coming on our show.
I appreciate you.
It's really great to meet you face to face. I'm looking forward to working with you for so many years to come. Thank you for fighting for our voting rights. Thank you for telling us who we are. Thank you for encouraging other people who are actually going to move forward and take your leadership moving forward and spread this message not just here in Florida, United States, but spread it worldwide.
Throughout the world.
Yes.
Throughout the entire world.
Our special guest, special, I could never say enough special guest, is the Desmond Meade, voting right activist. You guys name it, he's all over the place. But one of the best things, I encourage you, please, go grab yourself a book. It's a great book. And Desmond Meade, thank you from bottom of my heart. I'm really looking forward to do so many interviews that we may have developed.
Thank you so much,
sir.
man.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Our special guest, again, Desmond Meade. Get the book. We'll share, care, like. And this is a special Iggy host on episode 44. We love you. Everything out there, just be peaceful. And I said the only way to overcome the hate is to love each other. Thank you. Have a good one.